Hi, everybody, and welcome back to yet another cracking edition of the Matt Brown Show. This is the Built in New York series where I am shining a light on some incredible founders in the US, just changing the shape and look and feel of the world of business as we know it. In this example today, I'm very grateful to bring you the man, the legend that is Billy Brush. So, Billy, why don't you kick us off with the elevator pitch? What do we need to know?
Sure. Billy Brush, long background in playing soccer, and then also software development and coaching at a very high level as a master coach, a licensed here in the United States. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast, Matt. Really appreciate it. And really, starting from kind of the Steve Jobs high level part of it, and starting from the problem is we have three problems, but at the highest level is for the scout. It's really trying to enable, or the scouts need to be able to scout in a scalable way across the entire world and identify the players based on their performance needs. And there's never been a way to really do that at the youth level for the mass market. And as Scott Sandell says, who's our lead investor, managing director of NEA, says, holistic money ball for youth sports has arrived. And that's what we've done. We've provided a technology that we feel has the capability to do that now, today. And we're rolling that out incrementally to get to that point. But the second one, a little bit further down, is, and what some people have already done is, the coaches, they have a problem, and that problem is to be able to videotape games and evaluate those games. We go a layer deeper into actually segmenting, not having to tag any of those moments yourself and take 6 hours out of your day. Some of these people coach 4 teams, so that's 24 hours. That's an entire day that they're literally spending on tagging and then sending that out. We do it in the matter of minutes. So instead of 24 hours, you're doing it in 20 minutes. And we're really excited about that. And then the final one is for the players, which is not in the environment at all. And that's our real focus, and what we love. Our passion comes around the individual player. And the problem is, how do they measure growth, and how do they get into college? How do I know that I'm becoming a better player? I don't right now. The coach tells me, mom, dad, on the car ride home, they tell me something. I really don't have a way today to understand where I am at now, and where I was 6 months ago, and then where I was a year ago after that. And whether or not the coaching is effective. And that's really, I think, something that Dark Horse prides itself in, is we've tapped the surface in getting to that point to identify growth for players.
So, Billy, you mentioned you're from Germany originally, and obviously you're in the States, and we'll get into like your time at the Department of Defense also. But I think for me, when I initially met you, what was really interesting for me was like your background actually playing as a football player, and being overlooked for selection. And I don't know if I'm right or not,
Yes.
but it's certainly, from what you told me, it was almost like this Genesis seed that was planted subconsciously in your brain, like going, hey, that's actually not acceptable for me. And now what you've done is you've taken that Genesis, fast forward 10, 15 years, and now you're creating something that can truly change selection, for coaches and scouts.
Yeah, absolutely. Youth players are really emotional creatures. And, when I was 22 years old, I'm much older now, but at 22 years old, I was in the MLS supplemental draft in 2005. And I had a call into DC United with Dave Casper. And I was luckily able to try out with DC United, but got the ability to get into the draft. And I was undrafted. And I went to a combine in Minnesota with several other players that were also in the draft. And a guy by the name of Buzz was the head coach and evaluating. And I came out of that as the player with the highest athletic profile. in that combine, measurable statistics that they had, and I was ranked number one. But still, it wasn't enough to get me onto a team, and that devastated me at that time, being 22 years old. I don't know if I should be calling agents. I don't know if I should be calling owners. I have no idea what to do at that point. So I ended up going and having a trial in Germany in the Oberliga with Eintracht Frankfurt, and it was a wonderful experience. I was really met with amazing people. But coming back to the United States again at 22 years old, 23 years old at that time was a huge challenge to try to get now back into the MLS. We're just at that time we weren't really situated to make that leap from USL to MLS. Either you get in or you don't. It's kind of what that looked like back then. So this changes that incredibly. It's got data science built in for the youth to understand what level you're at, and also how you are playing against other players. So much so that recently we had a player here in the Bay Area where we promoted and showed her analytics, and now she's on the national team. And I think before she was not. And it just goes to show the power of data in the right circumstances, in the right situations, can be a massive contribution to achieving your dreams. And I think to youngsters out there, the slightest things can hit them really hard, especially for me in that situation. So yes, that definitely had a huge impact for me to build something like this, to help players who love the game, that their dream was to become a professional player, to give them that hope that you can be anywhere around the world. I could be in Czechoslovakia, I could be in India, I could be in Brazil, and I'm going to be able to take my data and put it against the best in the world somewhere else and look at it objectively. No one has been able to do that yet. And that's what we're really on the mission to solve.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is actually really landing for me and resonating with me. I'll tell you why, Billy, because I used to play soccer as well back in South Africa, and I got my provincial colors 3 times. And wow. I remember specifically I was trying out for SA schools, and like the lunch break, I was obviously at school. So at the lunch break, I was messing around in the field, and someone clipped my ankle. So I was like semi-sprained, and I had to go and then try out for SA schools. And I distinctly remember battling to run. And so I wasn't like at my top end of performance, but I still remember scoring a goal despite like, a sprained ankle, so to speak, or a swollen ankle, I should say. And I didn't get selected. And I remember how that felt. And I was like, you know what, like I've got like, it's not like my first rodeo, dude. Like I've been selected at the top level in this league 3 times. And now I'm suddenly being overlooked. And you know what really irked me was not knowing why.
Right.
Right. And so I love what you guys are doing at the Dark Horse, because it's like you're democratizing player performance essentially.
Exactly. Democratizing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's unpack the problem here a bit more. So what are some of the key points our viewers and audience around the world need to know when it comes to like the problem that you're actually solving? So we have a lot of context, but let's get more granular. Let's double click on some of the key aspects to the problem that you're solving. Maybe let's start with player performance and then look at it from a scouting and or coaching perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the players, they want to know, they're playing games, they're practicing day in and day out. And I think that in order for us to be successful, I think that it's a role game. The players, they play. So it's unfair for us to say, hey, here's your data, try to figure out how to become a better player, what areas in which you need to become better in. So there's this contribution from the coach that needs to act kind of like as a doctor-patient situation of like, here's the things that you need to do, here's the areas in which you need to improve upon. And then based on your data, are you making those adjustments? So we've built a tool that enables you to understand that situation better. In addition, I think really in the United States, the big problem is getting into college and being selected to play in an environment among your peers at a school that you really want to be at, and that's going to help you be successful in the future. And the most massive problem that's performance, but it's a byproduct of performance, are your highlights. And to us, that's the real pain point. That's the major pain point that everyone has. And what we've done is we've created a frictionless tool that anyone can use out of the box, that can look at a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, and it's already here. And the ability to now go and obtain these highlights, obtain the best highlight reel from a year out, 5 games, 6 months, you choose that time frame, I think is a real win for the community that wants to use that are elite, that wants to use the product from ages, I would say 12 to 18 years old. 6 age groups, for the boys and girls. That's 12 teams. And then also one level down, they actually need the product even more, because they are the ones that are being overlooked. They are the ones that are close. They're really, really close. And in some situations, maybe even better, but they can't necessarily play that position on that team, but they're better in other positions. So, or could be better in another program, right? So they have to work a little bit harder to within the college recruitment process. So this literally takes all of that amount of time away, and then literally, connects you with the community in which, the level in which that, you want to very quickly engage with. Conversely, enables scouts, if you want to dive into the scout side, now all of a sudden they have a tool. They're looking at a tool, Matt, that, they've never had. I rely on my pipeline of coaches that I trust. So I have this coach in the club scene, this coach. Hey, tell me about your players. Tell me about your players that your competition that you play against. Cool. I'll grab this player. Let's see them. Okay, cool. We're talking about like a fraction of the number of players in the world out there like that, right? That they're aware of. Now you've got this tool that not only are they aware of those players, they're aware of, we're feeding players to them in a scalable way that might fit their criteria. They'll enter some metadata. They'll understand what player they're looking for. They're fed these players. They can say, yes, these are players that we'd be interested, or no. So we'll understand that behavior. And then on top of that, you're able to not have to deal with all of these emails. You're able to see players that are like the players that you're looking for, and you have a broader scope now to deal with. But I don't want to say that I want to differentiate something very clearly, is these aren't necessarily for the scouts. Scouts don't want to see more players. They don't have a lot of time. They want to see less players, but they want to see the right players. And that's what DARKHORSE enables them to do, is filter, identify based on the data, look at the highlight, and then very quickly compare and contrast players in a global way. So it brings the scalability that's been missing forever to the table now for colleges.
Amazing. So, Billy, this is about essentially the ability for coaches to get to know their players, make an impact, measure growth. And from a scouting perspective, it sounds like this is a tool that could really help scouts identify and measure talent and source talent in a scalable, relevant way. Not reducing their time spent, not overwhelming them, but giving them access to talent in a measurable way that they can truly let's just say leverage for their unique strategy, or placing them within relevant teams and so forth. There's a third thing that I'd love for you to unpack for us, and it's this idea of the sports operating system community. What is that?
Yeah. That was the first thing that I really thought about. And going back to the democratization is, you look at these portals out there. Facebook is famous for their portal. Amazon, famous for their portal and e-commerce. Um, Netflix, is famous for their portal for movies. And I remember the very early stages looking and thinking about becoming an entrepreneur and really energizing about this idea. And I wondered, is this really going to be possible to be really scalable? And I thought to myself, is there a portal for sports? And what is the mass market of sports? And it's youth. And I said, wow, I have some experience with being a club director. I have experience playing the game. I have experience building multi-million-dollar technology. I think I can make an impact here. So um, what it is the revolutionizing of an entire vertical, really. Its own market. It's a brand new ball game, brand new market where you're bringing the community together and in a very safe and secure way that gives the privacy abilities to and the power to the parents, to the players, and to the coaches and the club. So if I want to go out and I want to engage with other players, or I was speaking to a dad today, very, very solid guy, who said, I moved from Northern California to Boise, and I had no idea what the level looked like. This would have been an amazing tool because we might not have even moved to Boise, Idaho. We would have moved to Denver, because soccer's better in Denver, and we love to ski, right? So um, I'm dead serious. That's a conversation I had about 15 minutes ago. So Dark Horse gives people the ability now to see things in a broader sense. So when I say operating system, it's an integrated solution that, instead of us competing with our other people in the market, we want to work with them to bring the data together in one area and connect with people from around the world. Someone has to do that. For us to evolve and move forward, someone has to create a very simple way to obtain as much data as possible on a player. And working in silos, I think, from product to product is possible, but it's going to be very specific. You do something very specific very well. So yeah, that's.
So, Billy, one of the things you mentioned to me when I first met you was the fact that there's a lot of tools out there for scouts, but nobody's really built a tool for players. And I
Correct.
think, and also like one of the things that I'm hearing from you is, and you're not saying it, but I think it's important to land here, is context,
Yeah.
right? It's like context is like one of the most overlooked ideas when it comes to designing products, solving problems, and things like that. You change the context, everything changes. And what
Yes.
you're doing is you're saying, hey, we can provide you a scalable, contextually relevant way to evaluate not only player performance, but also from a scouting perspective. It's about the ability, contextually relevant, right? Ability to
Yeah.
select players based on true performance, not on what is a
Right.
gut feel or like, how rich the mom or the dad is. Do you know what I mean? Or like
Yeah.
how much money can they contribute to the club or what have you.
Yeah.
So, so let's talk about context. Like, how
Yes.
important is context for you as a
Yeah.
founder scaling the Dark Horse?
It's the most important thing, hands down, in my opinion. In both ways, for the highlight and for analytics. If you understand with a click of a button all of the top highlights that you're drawing, and we have a ranking highlight algorithm for the last 6 months, you have a pretty good feeling of what player you're getting when you're scouting that kid. In addition, when you now provide the analytics side by side, now you're able to understand, okay, here's them in these situations, and here's them in terms of their growth and how they've been doing against other players that we might be interested in. So it's from the scouting perspective, it's massive, but individually as a player, I built a tool that can try to help people, number one. And I still feel that we're not quite there yet in terms of us coaching. We've got good coaches who can help the team, but these coaches, like I said, are coaching multiple teams at one time. So their time to impact individual players and magnify that is very limited. So it's the most important thing for us in the world to get the context, to understand how you can become a player. Because if each player on that team becomes a little bit better, the actual team becomes a lot better, right? At the end of it. So that's where we are, I think. Also, Andrew Ng, who I brought up before, who's one of the top data scientists in the world, we had the pleasure to meet and pitch. He really is the big believer in terms of that's the future, is taking the data and creating context. That's our next evolution, and that's where we're trying to take this product.
Mm-hmm. So Billy, let's talk a bit more about the product itself. I mean, pretty much, like, I'd say 9 out of 10 founders that I talk to on a daily basis are doing something with AI, and ML and stuff like this. How are you applying technology like that to solve what is essentially a hard science problem for youth sports?
So say the question again, Matt.
Yeah, so how are you using technologies like AI, computer vision, sensors, and things like that to essentially put the power of a data scientist in the palm of every player, coach, mom, and dad on Earth?
Two things. That's a great question, and it's not easy. That's the problem. That's why it's not here yet, or why it's just now here. First off, you have to take detection models and machine learning and bring them together, along with IoT sensors, and bring it all together. And that's a very challenging thing to do in terms of big data. And that takes time, and it takes optimization, and everything else. And here's the other problem. So there's that. It's automating, getting the data that you need first, getting the videos, getting the actual analytics, getting that stuff first into a space that you can look at. The other problem that you're looking at is on the club level. A club like MBLA out here has 100 teams. So now you're trying to provide a technology, not to one team, but to 100 teams, or 3/4 of the teams, or half of those teams, to help them be successful. And in order for, if you had a sports scientist that was able to look at the data and provide you information, there's no way one sports scientist can help even half of the teams in a soccer club. So in order for this to work, you have to have software, you have to have a technology there. So AI is essential. AI and then the data science is essential to bringing about that context. So what highlights do we need? What highlights are really important? We're working with one of the top video software tracking algorithm guys in the Bay Area. And then the other part of it is in terms of the data science part, how do you get that right? And that's an art form of it in its own, where you're looking at things like level, things like position specificity, things like, okay, well, what are the true metrics that helps lead those people be successful in a particular position? And then how do you grade that? How do you weight that in order to provide the context in which you're providing, to understand, here's the baseline of everyone else out there, here's where you are, and here's the predictive way in which you're going. So you're trying to bring algorithms of data to algorithms of big video data and detection and AI all together as one, and package it up in a nice little bow, and then release it and have no problems. And it's taken us 3.5 years to actually get to a point where we have a stable product that anyone in the world can upload and get that sort of thing. But it has not been easy, and there's still lots of room for improvement. I'll say one thing that I comes back to over and over again, and it's a battle between human and machines. Humans can do things pretty well, but if you tax a human being, meaning if you throw 20 games and ask them to just try to manually annotate 20 games, at some point they're going to get things wrong, right? Um, on the video side, if you're close and you can see the number and the physical stature of the player, you're able to detect these players really easily. But the further away you go from the field, from where the camera is, the harder it gets to get the accuracy in which you need. So you have this problem right now between, yes, humans are pretty good and machines are also pretty good, but one really needs to be better than the other in order to get the highest quality. And in the end, if we get enough data, we get 1 million players on board, very quickly we can teach our machines to do amazing things for this. And that's where the real excitement lies.
Billy, you mentioned the word predictive. I'm very curious to get your view on this idea of predictive intelligence. So let's say that you provide the data science behind player performance, it's contextually relevant, and you identify Matt Brown, and he's like the number one, based on the data, he's the number one player for SA schools, okay? So, very curious here. Do you feel like that actually, like, to what degree of accuracy do you feel like that will translate to player performance on the pitch? Because data is going to get you a long way there, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of other factors that actually contribute to performance.
there's so many factors. And it's a lovely, beautiful process. Um, when we say that Matt is the number one forward in the United States at 14 years old, and predictively, or let's say he's number 10, but predictively he's going to be number one in 2 years. What we can do is we can get an understanding of where he's been and how he's been doing lately, and some features that we know that will be successful. But we all know that under a different number of circumstances, this light bulb can just come in at a youth athlete and just light up, right? And just become so much better. We hear stories all the time about um, uh, players that were overlooked, and then Steph Curry is one of them, the ultimate dark horse that wanted to play at Virginia Tech, didn't, went to Davidson, and he's the best player in the world in the NBA. And no one ever thought that would happen. So I think that you don't know what's around the corner. I think that there's coaches that can impact, there's your family that can impact, a best friend, a girlfriend, anything. There's so many. It's you don't know. But here's the cool thing about it is, if you can go to that player, if you can go to Messi at 8 years old, 9 years old, and you can see and you can say, oh my goodness, this guy, he's going to be absolutely incredible under the right environment. You got to find out what that environment is, because not every flower, flourishes in the desert, right? And not every desert cactus flourishes in the Bay Area. But if you can get that something special in the right environment, I think, that this predictive element can really come to fruition. So I think you're dealing with environment plays a big role, and the player and the people around that player. It's more than just the data.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, because I think it's an indicator, but like there's so many other things like diet, like is his diet not ideal for performing? Is he going through a breakup? Is he suffering from mental pressures like taxes, like depression, anxiety, imposter syndrome? Like all those things really do factor when it comes to performance. Billy, a question from my side on partnerships. So you have some incredible partners. You're obviously doing an incredibly hard thing. How important is partnerships for you in terms of scaling? And what partnerships have you secured to start that scaling process?
Yeah. So originally we were with 22 teams, just not necessarily clubs, but 22 teams. And our lead investor basically said, Billy, it's not about the number of people. It's the engagement. It's the deep engagement that you really need to leverage first. So good advice. We went back and we ended up working with MVLA, Mount Vilas Altos, which is right down the street here. It's the birthplace of the Silicon chip with Bob Noyce and Intel. And it's just this amazing place to be around. And the people are amazing. The director's amazing. The board, everyone, amazing people. So we've been working with them for the past, I would say 2 years, and really trying to build this technology, which 2.0 is going to be released next month, that has really disruptive capabilities. So I would say it's especially in B2B, it's very, very important to know what is the most important problem that you're solving. And then B, work with a group. Maybe it's a pilot group of people that say, hey, yeah, we do see the potential. And if you can get here, we will pay for it. So for my other entrepreneurs out there, who are B2B, I would definitely, go to these folks, try to sell your product. If you can, sell to half of the population, do that. But if you can't, get into a pilot and do whatever you can to get in that pilot, and then try to do whatever you can to delight them. So MVLA, I would say, is our top partner that we're able to really talk about, so to speak. Now, outside of them, we have a few other organizations that we're currently working with at the moment, but partnerships early on are massively important because they get a say in what you build. And it's the customers that need to guide you in this process. There's the other part I'll say is, there's also potential and what Scott notices, that they can slow you down. So taking on too much at one time, we've learned, is also problematic. Start with one customer, start with one group that we've learned, and really, get them to say, this is absolutely amazing. Other people need to see this, and it'll start to grow.
I'm on your website at the moment. You've got a wearables stream here. I'm very
Yes.
curious to unpack with you, what's the role of wearables in the scaling of the Dark Horse?
Yeah. What got everyone excited at the beginning, and to go out and publicly say this, I hope one day we can get to the boot that we started with. And that's what got folks really excited at Stanford, was this boot technology that had 7 sensors. Because you can get 2 pieces of data. You can get the performance and you can get the technical, all in one. I think it's a really, really important part, but I think that there's also a formula for success as an entrepreneur. And it all comes back to focus and leaning into the future with that focus. So we tried to do it all. We tried to have 3 companies in one, from the beginning. So video camera, wearable, and analytics and video highlights, and it's just too much to take on at once. But what's cool about our technology is that the reason why we deviated from the boot was because it was not providing accurate statistics. So we went back to the drawing board, did a lot of research with kinesiologists, etc., PhD folks from around the world, Auckland, New Zealand, etc. And we found the most accurate place to place the technology is on the waist. Your boot moves around in 360 degrees and can pick up a lot of noise. And on the waist, it's the center of gravity. There is no noise, or a very reduced amount of noise. So we chose to go there with a very, very simple product, not hard, not $200 per boot, literally $15, and have a gross margin that would be delightful. And also solve the problems. I don't think that you need 20, 30 physical statistics for the youth market. You need somewhere. So year one right now, we want to get this in the hands and show that we can globalize DARKHORSE analytics and highlights. Year two is layering on what I really get excited about in addition to this, which is hardware, because you can touch it. The moment that you put something on that's helping you become a better player, someone else sees that and is like, wait a second, this kid has an edge over me. I want that edge, right? And it becomes a thing. Right now, wearables are greenfield, but it's hard to, without a lot of capital, to really showcase that this is going to be a big deal unless you're able to have built up the reputation that you have some kind of foundation. But that's a big part of our future, is the wearable. It's just not yet.
Billy, right up front, you were talking about environment, and obviously you moved from the East Coast and now you're based in Cali. What role would you say the environment of Silicon Valley has played in, securing capital, accessing networks, and ultimately, like, I really do believe you guys are going to be a unicorn. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. Don't thank me, thank yourself, dude. But like, what role has that environment, like the true Silicon Valley environment, played in your success?
It's a pivotal role. The reasoning is because there's people that really believe that you can change the world. There's more of them here. And in addition, like I brought up about Mountain View, there's this charm, this energy here that's so unique in any other world. You can say, like, I'm gonna go out and build this thing that's going to completely revolutionize a marketplace, and people will believe you. They'll be like, high five, right? Whatever it takes to get there, right? Where I was on the East Coast 4 years ago, you bring something up like that, and it's like, you get back to work, right? Like, you're wasting your time. So, and that's just the reality of the mentality, the difference between some parts of the East Coast and here. So, I think you brought up some statistics to me in a previous message, call. When I hear things like 60% of the successful startups, or just startups in general, are from the West Coast, I'm not surprised, because there's two big factors. Number one, they want to be around other people like themselves, right? And number two, the weather here is drastically better than the East Coast. So it's a win-win, right? It's a win-win. You pay for it, though. You pay for it, but it's a win-win.
Yeah, I was chatting to Steve Blank yesterday, and he was moving around his West Coast house, and it was dark where I was, in Denver, and like and the sun was up, and he kept moving around. I don't know what he was doing. Like, I don't know whether he was getting hot or whatever, but like, he kept moving around. And then like and then I was looking through his webcam, obviously, and then it was like this just sea and massive lawn, like, it's living the dream, baby.
Yeah.
And and it's true what they say, like, there's some beautiful states in the US, but like, if you have money, like most people go to the most people, not everybody, but you know, most people choose California.
Yeah, yeah. If you look at the venture capital too, I think I don't dare to say what the statistics are, but there's some staggering statistics about the sheer amount of venture capital that's here versus everywhere else in the world. And if I was not here, I would have never met this unbelievable person named Scott Sandell, who's really given this life what we're doing. And I really think that, you know, the other part of it is just trusting your intuition, you know, coming out here when that time is right and really going after it full force. A lot of people, they try to do two things. They try to do two things at once here in this industry, meaning like I've got my day job, but I'm also the entrepreneur. No one invests in that person. It just does not happen. And if they do, it's very, very few and far between. You know, you got to go for it and go for it all in. And hopefully it works out.
Mm-hmm. So Scott Sandell is one of your lead investors, and Scott's done 22 IPOs, I believe.
Yeah.
So I mean, and like true rock star, and the other, and visionary, by the way. Like he's the guys that go, I get your vision, dude. Like I'm in.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm curious to maybe give other founders some perspective. So one of the things Steve Blank and myself were talking about last night was, you know, when to raise money, especially now, like the macroeconomics aren't the best. Like the cost of capital is a lot higher. Investors are being more selective than they were. Like the ratios like gone in the other direction. And so you in the hot seat, you have raised money, and obviously you're going to raise a shit ton more. So what have you learned about raising capital, like in a market where the economics are potentially not, you know, not ideal? What's your advice to founders in the raising money space for a scale up such as yourself?
Very simply, if you want a very simple answer, it goes into what Peter Thiel says, which is, you know, try to do something that, or whatever you're doing, try to make sure there's as limited amount of competition as possible, and really try to make it transformative. If you've got something that doesn't just kind of tweak something, but there's very few other people that are dominating the market and it's brand new, two things can happen. One is you've got something that people will pay attention to in a very noisy world. And the second thing is you get, if you actually do get people to pay attention to it, they'll tell other people and they'll say, wow, you know, this is new, this is interesting, they're doing something different than anyone else is. So I think, you know, positioning yourself that way, you really got to think about that. And then the other part is, for us, you know, it's taken me a long time to Dark Horse as a team to get to a long time to understand, hey, we need to narrow our focus. And it's taken more than 100 venture capitalists to say the same thing to us, which is, you know what, the video is really cool, and there's these other people that are battling it out right now. Same thing with the hardware, but you know, no one's really doing this with analytics, and this is what you care about the most. Why are you doing all this other stuff? So it takes a little while to find out what is your business, but when you find it out, really like focus on that. We had to pivot. We wanted to be the everything solution and own it all. But in the end, what we really decided on as a team was, what do we care about most? What are we willing to fight it out with anyone, whoever is even better than us, right? We're going to prove that we can do it better in the end than those other smarter people than us. Find out what that is and just go all in with that. And it'll connect with more people, and more people will lead to more introductions, and more introductions will lead to money.
Mm-hmm. Billy, you mentioned to me when we first met, you shared a quote with me, and you said work like someone out there is going to take it all away.
Yes.
And your tagline is actually outwork them.
Yeah.
Right, which is a great double click on what you just said, right? It's like, listen here, if you want to compete, that's cool, dude. But like, we're in a white space, and this is, by the way, another thing I asked you. I said, how important is it actually to have a white space? And you were like, dude, it's just like it's like a non-negotiable. Like if you
Yeah.
like, the thing for me is like, in business, whether you're trying to raise money or whether you're trying to land a customer, like everyone's trying to commoditize you. Like if you
Yeah.
take the Matt Brown show, oh, you're a podcast. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, no,
Right.
dude, I'm not. It's like, what did Jay-Z say? He says like, I'm not a business man.
Right.
I'm a business man. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
whatever the case was, like whatever that quote was, which I'm now bastardizing. But it was this idea of like commoditization, and so, the only way you can truly revolutionize an industry is like, I don't even believe in first loser advantage. I don't think that's the thing. Not in tech, because it moves too fast.
Yeah.
So if you have a white space and you can build tech, then you can truly own that category, which is what you guys are doing. One of the other things I just want to quickly, a couple of things, and then we'll wrap up. Is your advisors. Like, one of the things that also resonated a lot with me when we first met was like how much input you have from like remarkable people.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to unpack that for our audience. Like, how important is it? I mean, like, a lot of us, I'm not talking about a board of advisors here. I'm talking about like a network of advisors. Like, how important is that in terms of your success?
I can only speak about ours, but I think it's massive. That's what our superpower is. Like, you if you look at Mark Andreessen, he gave a video reel on at Stanford, and what he talks about. He has a few different pieces, and when he's looking to try to fund someone, um, one of them was, what is their massive competitive advantage? Our massive competitive advantage is that, I'm a member at the highest level subject matter expertise in this space. So automatically I get respect from the community in which I'm trying to impact, right? Is they're going to open the door because, hey, Billy's devoted his life to this. He knows what he's talking about. He's a credible person. And we're going to try to help Billy out because he really cares about this and he wants to help us. So for us, bringing on people like Dr. Juan Delgado, um, who's been around the world, technical director of Valencia. Now he's with Austin FC. People like Christian Petesic, director of scouting for the New York Knicks. Now he's with Mike Miller, with the #1 draft pick from Duke. Those building in that intelligence to make sure that we not only just build a product that is good, but build a product that can really magnify impact is really, really, really important.
So Billy, I'm going to have a bit of fun with you. I want to give you the keys to the Matt Brown Show time machine, and I'd love for you to go back to like day one, and imagine all the things that you've learned, all the things you failed at, all the things you overcame. What's that one piece of advice you'd give yourself about building this business?
The one, start incredibly small. Do not try to build everything from day one. And then in that process, don't start with building features or what you think is the truth. Start with building from problems. So problems, then you've got the solution, the desired solution, and then you can show what you've built or the use case, problem, solution, use case, and then you can validate what you've built by that use case. But start with email. Like, people don't care at the very beginning. Like, they just want to see that you are showing up every day and that you're getting better and better and better. And I think us entrepreneurs, we want to try to, and us as people that give you feedback, it's like, oh, well, you've got to get here. And that's not true. Like, you just have to solve the problem. And after you've solved that problem for them, they're going to automatically, because you've shown you built up a relationship with them, they're going to want to help you, and they probably will want to pay for your technology at that point as well. So I just really think the more that you can, the less development that you can do at the beginning and the more interfacing with customers at the very beginning, the more success and the faster you can go and build solutions. Mark Cuban, one more quote. Mark Cuban said the other day, he asked, what's the number one best piece of advice that he could give to himself? And it was, go to people, learn how to sell. And what he meant by that was go to people not trying to convince them, go to people trying to ask whether or not they can help you. Come at them from like, hey, if I do this, will this help you? Yes, great. No, okay, well, what do you need? How can I help you? And I think that's a game changer for us entrepreneurs when we understand that. We can really break the ice of building a solution and then helping and selling a solution is the key.
It's really great advice. Billy, why do you do all of this? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
It's a mixture of like, this is what I feel like I'm compelled to do. Like I have a calling almost, and I enjoy it. I really, really enjoy it. I love it. And every day is a new problem. I feel like I'm a problem solver by nature. And I feel like, there's a lot of people that are okay with doing XYZ every day to day to day. And that's just not me. If I have to do one thing over and over and over and over, I lose my mind. I really do. Like I have to have something new and exciting, and I have to try to do something that is going to be interesting, that's new. And it's tough to find that. I don't think that's an all the time type of thing for everyone. And it's not even me every day, but that really excites me is to be in a position where I can do something that is going to lead to a big success, but making little things better day by day and interacting with other people to help me with that. It's just the most incredible process for me to take on every day.
Well, dude, you're doing some amazing things, man. Yeah, I really, really, really can't wait to see where you're going to go. It seems like you have all the right ingredients in the recipe for a unicorn cake. So I'm super, super excited to see where you're going to go. But thank you. Yeah, thank you for being here. It's been a real privilege.
It's been a privilege too, and big things that you're doing with your podcasts, and all the best wishes to you in the future. Hope to stay connected in the future, Matt.
Awesome. Thanks, Billy. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.